Welcome to Promote, Profit, Publish. I'm your host, Juliet Clark. And today we have an Aussie guest that I think you guys are really going to love talking about thought leadership. But before we get started, I want to remind you this coming Friday, we have one of our free trainings, and it's Tracy Hazard, and she's going to be talking about podcast guesting for authors, turning your listeners into readers. That's what we do on all of our podcast tours that we put people on. So I'm pretty excited. So if you're tired of podcast book tours that result in no book sales, interested in connecting with readers who are primed and ready to discover your books, then ditch the guest and pray approach and zero in on the insider secrets for podcast guest success. She's going to be bringing us some really hard distilled wisdom over her years of guesting. And I know from my years of guesting, you guys are probably going to find out some tidbits as well. But you can go register for that. It's going to be this Friday at 9:00 a.m. MST, so Mountain Standard Time. And you can register for it at www.bamagtraining.com. It's free. You guys know, if you've shown up for these before, that you can always ask questions, which I love because you guys get a lot of really good information when you ask specific questions. So today's guest is Vince Warnock, and he is an 11 times best-selling author, publisher, and award-winning marketing and visibility coach. He is known for his expertise in neuromarketing, publishing, and AI, and has been presented with numerous awards, including being included in the Fearless 50, a program designed by Adobe to recognize the world's top 50 marketers. Vince is also the host of a top podcast, which you guys can listen to me on soon as well, Chasing the Insights, and he is the founder of ATG Publishing and Business Mind magazine. And as you can imagine, he and I had plenty to talk about because I've got a publishing company, I use AI, I've got a magazine. We could have talked for hours. So stay tuned for Vince Warnock. Vince, welcome.
Hey, so good to be here.
You guys, I have to give him kudos. Being in Australia, this is actually like what, 4 a.m. on Saturday morning?
4 a.m. in the morning, yep.
Thank you. I want to, I told you what I do every day, Monday through Friday. I'm that early. Saturday morning, I'm not getting up for you. So thank you.
Yeah, I did not want to miss this, and it's been a crazy week, so Saturday morning was perfect.
Okay, good. So tell us a little bit about what you do and how you got here.
Well, a long time ago in a galaxy far from now.
You know how much I love Star Wars. We've had this conversation.
We have, yes. Oh my goodness, I'm a huge Star Wars nerd. Now, look, my background's pretty kind of eclectic. I'm trained in electronic computer engineering and software engineering, and then discovered how boring that was, and discovered that people were the thing that I really cared about. So kind of went on a weird journey, going in and out of corporate, and then my own startups, and then early days it'd be like create a startup, fail, go back to corporate. Then finally it got to create a startup, succeed, sell the startup, and then go back to corporate. And I had just come off the back of selling our largest startup ever. It was a multi-eight-figure exit after 3.5 years of extreme stress and anxiety, but it was a worthy journey. But came off the back of that and thought, I need a holiday, so I'm going to get a corporate job. And I ended up becoming the chief marketing officer at a Fortune 100 company called Cigna Insurance. And I was there for 5 years. And honestly, Juliet, on paper, it was the dream job. Like, I would look at this, the pay was ridiculous, of course, because you're in a Fortune 100 company. The bonuses, we had like 3 bonuses a year, and they were ridiculous. I got to travel the world, speaking on stages everywhere. I published my first book while I was there. And got recognized by a huge amount in the industry. In fact, even got recognized by Adobe as one of the top 25/top 50 in the world. And yeah, I was miserable. And I know this because I literally was in my office writing down all of those things that made my job so special, because I didn't want the job. And that made me feel so guilty and so ashamed, because I thought every marketer, this is their dream job. Like, you're in a Fortune 100 company, all those accolades, and be like, yep, everyone would kill for that. I had it, and I was ungrateful because I didn't want it. And really what it boiled down to, I had to work it out. I was like, why am I so miserable here? And I came home and I was talking to the wife one day, and she recognized it, said, "Look, you're not happy, are you?" And I said, "No." And we suddenly realized it was because I wasn't doing what I was kind of meant to do, which is help people. I was so unfulfilled there because at that level, when you're a C-suite executive in that size company, there is no people. There is just numbers and data, and every person there related to a number and a data. And I just didn't fit it. I found myself getting really angry going into meetings. So we went into a executive meeting. There were 12 of us on the senior leadership, and we're sitting there, and they're waiting for the CEO and the CFO to come into the meeting, and the rest of them are all talking about their bonuses. And they're talking about, what are you going to do with yours? One of them was going to buy a McLaren because the price had come down to 500,000 or something. And one of them talking about a new holiday home in the Hamptons. So I'm like, this is not me. And they asked me, one of them said, "What are you going to do with your bonus, Vince?" And I turned around and I don't know where it came from. It just kind of bubbled up out inside of me. And I just turned around and said, "I don't know. I want to take my wife on a cruise, but I don't have the stupid bonus for that." I was like, oh, it just kind of reared up. And I realized I don't fit in here at all. And these people are not my people. It was such a toxic culture and everything. So yeah, I gave it all in. I said, "That's it." I said to the CEO, "I've done my time here. I need to move on." She was like, "No, no, no." She goes, you can't move on. "Do you know how much we pay you?" And I said, "Oh, it's not about the money." And she went,
Do you
"I
know
don't
how much we pay
understand."
you?
Oh, seriously. She thought I was having a breakdown. She actually asked if I need a psychologist. "Do you want me to get a psychologist or to get me someone in to talk to you?" And I'm like, no, I'm very clear on my decision. So I left there to do what I do now, which is to help people. And the best way I know to do that is by giving people a voice. And this is because, and this was an epiphany I had, because I've got 7 different businesses, Juliet, and I couldn't figure out the thread between the 7 of them. I'm like, why am I so passionate about 3 kind of key areas, which is marketing, AI, and publishing? I don't understand. And then finally I realized all of these 3 things tie back to giving people a voice. And that tied back to my childhood, which was growing up in an abusive home, growing up in a place where you did not have a voice. In fact, if you used your voice, if you stood out, you were a target. So for the first probably 11 years of my life, I really hid from the world. And yeah, when I finally found someone who believed in me, and which was a teacher when I was 11, someone who believed in me and showed me that I didn't have to be defined by the way I was brought up or my environment, that I could actually write my own future. That was the most freeing, the most it was the most incredible feeling. This whole, it was like a bubbly feeling on the inside. I don't know what's going on here, and then I'm like, oh wait, this is hope. I've heard of this thing. So it was kind of weird and crazy, but it really did kind of instill in me the desire for other people to feel that as well. And so that's what we do. I have 7 businesses. As I said, we have a publishing company. So we help a lot of entrepreneurs, particularly neurodivergent entrepreneurs, anyone with dyslexia or ADHD. We help them to write and publish their books and get their voice out there. We have a magazine called Business Mind, and we just quietly are launching new magazines this year as well. We have our own podcast, Chasing the Insights. All of those are about telling people a story and giving them voice. I do marketing coaching work, which is amplifying their voice and helping them to put it out there. And then we have a couple of AI businesses, which are all around automation and using AI to accelerate your voice and get it out there as fast as possible.
Yeah, that's great. Something you just said, we're going to go off topic a little bit.
We will.
I didn't grow up in an abusive family, but I did a very blue collar family. And it's funny because I made a lot more money than I do now when I was in real estate. But the money wasn't making me happy because I didn't have values. I think it's the values. Like you kind of, when you come from something like that, you're kind of straddled in both worlds, and you feel out of place everywhere. And I think that
you feel like you're not yourself. And that was the big thing for me as well. And look, part of this is I've struggled with ADHD since I was a child. And part of that meant I never felt like I fit in anywhere anyway, because you were always told, why can't you be like everyone else? Why can't you behave like everyone else? Why can't you sit still? Why can't you follow instruction? Why can't you read or write like everybody else? And by the way, growing up in the 70s, not a great time to be a kid with ADHD. They hadn't really invented it back then, so we didn't label for it. Yeah. So one of my teachers just decided that they knew what was wrong, why I struggled to read, and that was because I was retarded. That was her voice.
God, they told you that?
Oh yeah, to my face. She goes, and to be fair, she was really annoyed with me because I kept asking questions all the time, and I was a super curious, super bright young child. But when it came to writing and reading, I was really struggling. And it's because my brain was too fast. But her conclusion was, no, 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 it's just you're retarded. So,
Oh my gosh. Well, thank God nobody ever told me I was retarded.
you know, the
I,
funny thing, like, honestly, there were two teachers that were pivotal in my life. There was her from a negative perspective, and there was the teacher when I was 11. And I got to tell the teacher, that I had when I was 11 how much he impacted my life. In fact, before he passed away, a bunch of us got to tell him the impact he had on our life because he really was an incredibly inspiring individual. But I never got to tell that teacher that told me I was retarded. And I was thinking to myself, man, it would have been so good to go, you know what? I'm an 11 times best-selling author. I run a publishing company, magazine.
right.
For F's sake, look at this, look at what I've done. But then someone pointed out to me, if I ever done that, she would have turned around and said, oh, so I inspired you.
Oh, that's a very, very good point. I too have ADHD, but I think we're kind of lucky because it was before they would have just given us medication.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
now, all these kids are on medication, but my dad had it pretty bad as well, and he actually taught me skills to kind of. I guess I didn't realize at the time that they were things that controlled that lack of focus. And
Yeah.
now I think I'm hyper focused. So I'm swinging between the
Which,
streets.
as my wife discovered, there's a downside as well. Like, she's amazing. She researches ADHD as well. She is a therapist, and one of the things she discovered is hyperfocus. The downside of hyperfocus is sitting there working away, forgetting to eat, forgetting to drink, forgetting to go to the bathroom. You get to the end of the day, like, why am I so sore and nauseous and everything? Oh, whoops. So I literally, she's like a ninja. I will find myself sitting there if I go into hyperfocus mode, and all of a sudden there's a cup of like coffee in front of me or a glass of water or something. I'm like, how the hell did that get there? And she sneaks in and puts it on the desk in front of me so I don't forget to drink or eat or anything like that. So it's
That's
amazing.
so funny. Mine is, it makes me less people-y, I would say, because like I'm direct and to the point and I want to get back to what I was doing. So sometimes my people skills lack when
Oh
I'm
man.
really hyper-focused, which probably
we,
isn't
we
good
don't talk
either.
about the hyperfocus rage enough. Like, honestly, it's that moment where you're in hyperfocus, and it's not anyone's fault because they don't know this. They don't know how your brain is wired. And they walk in and they just say something to you like, "Oh, how's it going?" And you feel the rage boil up on the inside. You're like,
Yeah, like you're bothering me.
"He lost my focus. Thank you." Like, and they're like, say, "How you doing?" So yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. So you have a really great talk on the 13 pillars of perceived thought leadership. And
Yeah.
I would love to hear more about that, especially like the difference between thought and or perceived and actual.
Oh yeah, yeah.
What does
Well,
that look like?
quite a lot actually. Now this is funny. This came from, or we started this project when I had a previous startup, and we were entering into new markets. We were a high growth tech startup. The two of us that started, I'm the marketer and we had a developer. Neither of us had a background in the financial services industry, which is a high trust industry, right? You can't just walk in and say, hey, I've got this technology that's going to deal with all your financial data. Let's hook it up to your system. And they go, oh, well, that's a good price. Sure, let's do it. Doesn't work that way because
They
they
don't do
need to know.
that.
Yeah, I know. So we had to build that kind of thought leadership. We had to be basically positioned and kind of seen as industry leaders. And so we started then doing a huge amount of research, which I continued all the way through to what I do now. And I have teams and teams that go out there and do this research. We do interviews, we do, qualitative and quantitative research around thought leadership. And what we wanted to do is come to the conclusion of what is thought leadership itself. And that is really simple. Like, honestly, it is just having something to say. Basically, either having something that's contrary to the market, having something that's slightly askew to the market, or a different way of explaining something, or a different framework which illustrates something. But it's basically just having something to say and an audience that's willing to listen to it. And that's thought leadership. It's pretty simple. But then we said, well, why is some people perceived as thought leaders and others not, if that's the case? And that's where we discovered there were these pillars of perceived thought leadership. These are the 13 things. We've gone through and found 13 of these. The 13 things that you can do that make people go, oh, you know what you're doing. So you're a thought leader. And they kind of, yeah, it's honestly, when the research came out, I think I said this to you off air, Juliet, but it was hilarious when we got the research back because some of them are obvious. When you hear them, you'll go, oh yeah, actually, when I see people do that, I immediately think they're a thought leader. But there were some in there where I'm like, the hell? Like, seriously. I said to my team, one of them in particular, I just said to my team, this cannot be right. Like, we need to go back, we need to check the data, we need to make sure that this is accurate. And literally, while they're doing that, someone reached out to me. And funny enough, I fell for this exact thing. I immediately thought, wow, they know what they're doing because they have one of these pillars.
Oh, wow. So, what are those 13 pillars? And then I want you to go back to which one you were like, wait, let's double
Oh, yeah.
check those.
Well, we kind of break them down into four key areas. The first one is the obvious, but actually the most important ones. And the number one pillar by far is being a published author. The moment you're a published author, people take you more seriously. People perceive you as a thought leader. And I have a publishing company. We help people with this. So I kind of teach people that there's not really that big a deal. Writing a book is a lot simpler than you think. Like it still requires a lot of effort, but it's not impossible. Anyone can do it. And we work with people with dyslexia who never think they could write a book, and yet they write and publish a bestseller. So we kind of teach this stuff, and yet it always works on me. When someone pitches to me and says, I want to be a guest on your show or want to speak at one of your events, and then they say, I'm a best-selling author, I always go, oh. And then I'm like, why did I do that? Like, seriously, I already know that that's not that big a deal. But it makes sense. And if you think about it, it makes perfect sense because for most people, the thought of writing a book is completely overwhelming.
Yeah.
Right? When they think I want to be an author, I want to sit down, I want to write a book. The first thing that happens is they go, I don't even know what book to write. So that kind of is a huge barrier. Then they go, I don't know how to write a book. And then they go, oh my goodness, it must take so much time. So 99.9% of people don't write a book, which means that when they see you've done it and in their subconscious, even if you know this, it still works. In your subconscious, you look at that and go, wow, well, they must have something pretty special to say if they've taken the effort, done the hard yards and actually written and published a book. And then there's the other aspect of that as well, which is most people don't understand that you can self-publish or go through a hybrid publisher. They all think the same thing, which is you have to pitch to a traditional publisher. They've got to go through a vetting process, all this kind of stuff, and you have to be the best of the best. So immediately they think if you've published a book, somebody out there has recognized that you are amazing at what you do. So that's number one on that list. The other two in that category are speaking at people's events. Simple as that. And by that, I mean like going on their podcast, like me on your podcast right now, by speaking at a virtual summit or on a conference on a stage somewhere. That immediately positions me as a thought leader because you're there to watch thought leaders or to listen to thought leaders. And then the other one, which is the one that everybody has to do as a thought leader anyway, is consistent thought leadership content. This is consistent content that positions you as an authority in your industry. So that's the kind of top three. Then we break it down into what people are saying about you, the external ones. And these are things like TEDx talks, right? Immediately when you get selected to do a TEDx talk and you get on that TEDx stage, people go, oh, wow, you must be the best of the best. You must know what you're talking about. Then there's things like getting press, like getting featured in magazines and newspapers, on TV, on radio, all these kind of things, because that's somebody else recognizing your expertise. And it's ironic because seriously, I listen to the radio quite a lot. I'm a huge radio fan. I used to work on radio for years. I work on a radio station here in Australia. But I listen to radio and I listen to the experts that they get on there. They always get like a marketing or an AI expert. And I'm like, you're not an expert. I'm listening to you, what you're talking about. How are you on there? But everyone listening to that goes, oh, they are an expert. And I'm like, no, this person's just literally picked up AI as soon as ChatGPT came out. But anyway, awards fit in that category as well, getting recognized as, by winning an award, whether that's a book award or a marketing award, whatever your industry is. And then authority sites. And this is a simple one. You can actually do a lot of this yourself, but getting featured on like Wikipedia or like having your own Wikipedia page. I can't say I've done that yet. But
that feels weird to me. Does it feel weird to you?
So my team keep hassling me and saying we should do this. And I'm like, nah, I can't bring myself to do it.
It feels so egocentric.
It does. But the other one's IMDb. And by the way, as podcasters, people don't realize this. You can feature your podcast on IMDb, which is a giant database. And
really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Oh, yes. We need to talk about that later. It's really, I was going to say really simple. It's a pain in the ass process, but it's simple enough. And you can just put all your episodes on there and things like that as well. But those are the kind of what external people say about you. And when you do those things like TEDx, press, awards, and authority sites and that, again, people perceive you as a thought leader. The next two are platform based, which is basically having your own platform. So that could be your own podcast, YouTube channel, radio show, TV show. But if you have your own platform, you're perceived as a thought leader because somebody has recognized that you deserve to have your own platform. Or running your own events. And I encourage everyone to run their own summits and things like that, their own conferences. A lot of work involved in that. But when you do
Yes.
that, you not only get positioned as the thought leader there, but you also get the halo effect of bringing in quality speakers. And same as having quality speakers on your podcast, on your YouTube channel, those kind of things. You immediately get labeled as the same as those people, the same kind of level. And then lastly, and this is where the weird ones come in, the last ones are the kind of next level, we call it, which is first of all, setting up something like a contribution to the industry. So that could be doing your own industry paper, your own industry reports. It could be creating your own qualification framework, or it could be creating your own standards. And I'll give you an example. We, as a publishing company, we wanted to stand out from other people. But first of all, in fact, this came from, you'll love this, Juliet. This came from actually somebody bad mouthing me at a conference. We were at a publishers conference. There was a pile of publishers there. And it's a bit of a love fest because we all, like most publishers out there, are great people. I have a lot of time for other publishers because they all have the same thing. We all have a desire to help people be seen. So I'm in there and one of the publishers was going, "Hey, Vince, we saw your new book covers. Oh, man, your designers are brilliant." I passed it on to my team and said, "This is the benchmark. We should be watching what these guys do." And I'm like, "Oh, thanks, man. I really love the work you did on this collaboration book." And he's like, "Oh, thanks." But there was a traditional publisher in there who was a bit older than all of us and a bit
And snotty.
exactly. And he scoffed. And I was like, "Oh, you okay?" kind of thing. I checked in with him, in the group. And he goes, "I've seen your books, Vince. I've seen the layout, the formatting." He said, "Amateur hour," which is not here as a publisher. Like, honestly, that really cut deep because we're very proud of the books we do. I mean, we've got a track record of 100% bestseller. Every one of our books has become a bestseller. So to me, I'm like, well, this is not on. And I said, "What do you mean?" And he goes, he said, "Well, look, I've looked at your formatting. You obviously don't even understand the concept of a standard." And it was because we had like line breaks after paragraphs, we had bold headings and things like this. And it cut deep, but everyone else there jumped to my defense and they were like, "Actually, we really like Vince's formatting. We've actually adopted very similar ourselves, blah, 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 and all this." So I went back to my team and I said, "Look, why do we format the way that we do?" And they immediately responded with, "Oh, that's easy, Vince." And I thought, "Oh, phew, there'll be like a standard that we're working to or something like that." And they said, "Oh, it's because that's what you like." And I'm like, that can't be why we format the way we do. You can't be just because I like this, until I realized why I liked it. And I had to sit down and go, okay, have a look at the books that we produce, have a look at the books that this other publisher produced. And the moment I opened up his books, it was just pages and pages of run-on text, no gaps between paragraphs, just an indent. And my brain just looked at it and went, "I'm not reading that, dude. Seriously,
Right?
that's too
Yeah.
hard."
Yeah.
And I realized, wait, we'd accidentally created the ADHD publishing standard. We'd created a format that makes it easy for people that are neurodivergent to be able to digest the content. So we leant into that and we just decided we were going to create our own framework. And so we created the ADHD publishing standard. There's 2 layers to it, put it out there free for the industry as well. And I have to tell you, August last year, that publisher adopted those standards.
Oh
And
my gosh, that's great.
I hope he listens to this because I seriously, I was so tempted to reach out to him and go, "So how'd that work out for you?" But no, I decided not to be childish. Yeah.
You have to, what people don't understand about what we do is you have to be flexible with each client. So we just recently published a book that we recommended no edit. And like nobody would ever, but
Yeah.
it was stage 4 cancer. It was a journal called Cancer Ramblings
Yep.
and done in real time during chemo. And, she's living, thriving, she's overcome it. But she
Yeah.
actually goes into hospitals because the doctors that worked with her promote her. They thought what she did during chemo sessions to inspire other patients to do this
Yeah.
journaling as well. They just thought it was tremendous. So we took a chance and we put out a book that wasn't edited because we felt it was the raw emotion of someone doing
100%.
that. So, you have to look at each book and decide, what is going to be the standard here. And I used to work for a traditional publisher, and I will tell you, they are snotty and they
I
are
was going to say we do ghost publishing for a couple of
cliquish.
them, so yeah,
Yeah,
we know the industry.
they're very cliquish and
Yeah.
yeah.
Uh,
So
no,
yeah,
that is. I tell you now, the no edit, that is incredibly brave, and also so obvious when you think about that. We have never done a full no edit book, but we've done a partial one before where it was literally that. So it was a guy who his journey around basically almost dying in COVID. Like they kept asking his wife to turn off the ventilator and basically turn off his life support, and multiple times she was like, no. So, but the book was in three parts. One, the first part, which is very difficult to read, is his journey, and difficult because it's very emotional and hearing the impact that had on his wife and his family. The second part of it is the no edit part, which is just his wife's journaling through all of that and her leaning into her faith and leaning into doubt and all this kind of stuff. And we kept it in like spelling mistakes, grammatical errors, and all. We introduced it as that as well. And then the last part is what they learned from that journey and their critique of the medical industry, and in a very professional way. Like they don't just go out there and slam them, but they talk about the issues that they had around that. So it's a very brave move. I'm so happy you did that. That is fantastic.
Yeah, it was, and she's been a bestseller. I mean, she
Yeah,
gets out
yeah.
there and she hustles. Yeah, it's
Well, as a publisher, I'm so jealous. We wanted to publish that book, so it would have been amazing.
well,
I love that
it was a
story.
good referral, and with one of our most looked at clips when we interviewed her and then did our shorts, which she actually has a story about her left lung was basically dead, and
Wow.
she did this whole session where she was in the shower and she just talked to her right lung about, hey, your sister's dying, we got to do something about it, and you need to be gentle with her, and like she self-talked into it, and then one day, this is disgusting, but like just a ton of stuff came out of her nose. And
Oh,
the lung revived, it cleared itself and revived, which, it sounds disgusting,
yeah.
but that's
Ah,
probably one of our most looked at clips because people are just like, whoa, you just talked and
yeah.
nurtured your way through that. And,
Oh my
that's
God.
one of those lessons that, you,
I love those kind of books because they're difficult to publish, to be honest. People
yeah.
don't realize this, but even with ADHD, I read every one of my clients' books about 7 times. And when it's a tough book like that, my wife just knows. She's like, oh man, you're a big soppy. I sit there and I'm just crying and crying reading these kind of books and people's personal journeys. They're so powerful. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so back to the pillars.
Oh, yeah.
Uh,
Wait a minute. So that was a
three
sketchy
left.
pillar right there.
Yeah, yeah. We've got three pillars left. One of those is anything technology, and we call this cutting edge tech. And that is if you have your own Chrome extension or your own application, like your own mobile app or web based app and things like that. Anytime you have something that's cutting edge technology, and of course at the moment everything's AI. So if you have your own AI tools, even your own custom GPTs, to be honest, then most people look at that and go, oh, wow, you must know what you're talking about. Then there is the element of social good as a business. And I think all business should be doing this anyway, but your way of giving back to the community. And there is a perception that if you're giving back to the community, you've reached a level of success, which means you've reached a level of thought leadership. And the last one is the one that I was telling you about before, which is having your own merchandise. And by that, I don't mean just putting your logo on a t-shirt or a cup or something like that, but I mean having your own brand around this as well. And that was the one where I said to my team, this is not real. Like, this cannot be true. Like, how would someone perceive you as a thought leader because you've got, the boss bitch range of t-shirts and things? But while they were doing this, like I got them to go back to the research, and we question everything with these things. So go back and let's dig in deep and find out, make sure our own bias isn't entered in here. And while this is happening, I had a client reach out to me, or a potential client, I should say. And she reached out and she said, look, I would love to I'd love you to help me to generate leads and to build my community because, I want to be a thought leader. And we're like, well, hey, you come to the right people. So I did my research on her and I'm like, wait a minute. When we talk about the 13 pillars, this woman was crushing it. She was a best-selling author twice. She had a very high, her podcast was almost as large as mine. I'm like, well, what's going on here? She was constantly speaking at different events, ran her own summits. She's spoken on TEDx. She was constantly in the media and all this. I'm like, this woman is huge. And then we saw she had her own merchandise range. She had her own range of, they were literally boss bitch. And they had, we had like people on social media wearing her t-shirts and all this kind of stuff. So I immediately thought, wow, this woman must be huge. She must be a thought leader. And I kind of said to her, why do you need my help? And she goes, oh, because I have a very small audience. And I went, well, no, you don't. Like, you've got your own merchandise line, you've got your own everything. And then she told me that she was basically doing these 13 pillars without knowing what they were. She was doing all of these different things to position herself. And I made the mistake, and I've challenged myself ever since then. I'll never use this term again. But I turned around and said, "Oh, so you're faking it till you make it." And she challenged me, Juliet. She turned around and said, "No, I know where I'm going, and I'm going to behave that way now." And I went, because I've always been uncomfortable with the term "fake it till you make it," because there's nothing fake about it. It's real. When you write a book, that's a lot of work. When you put a podcast out there, that's a hell of a lot of work, as you know. So this is not faking anything there. So that's when we changed our narrative and said, actually, we know where we're going, and we know where you're going, and we're going to get you to do those pillars, those things now, so that people can see how much of a thought leader you actually are.
So that's good. That's cool. When I worked in advertising, we got like a shirt a quarter.
Yeah.
In there, and I hate to say it because I've always like one of them was shy day mojo. Good enough is not enough, and like talk about people who think they're not enough. Like, what are you trying to do to us? Now we have to wear a T-shirt that says we're good enough. Our best effort isn't enough. But we used to joke about that, but it really was that's our philosophy is we're going to go above and beyond. But it was just kind of when I got the T-shirt, I was like, really, I have to wear that a lot.
We had it with that startup, the high growth tech startup before I worked at Cigna. Our developer there was big on t-shirts, so he got me to design multiple t-shirts for him. So as a company, we had our branded ones, which we would wear to like events and things like that. But then we had ones with 8-bit characterizations of a whole team on the cover or on the t-shirt and all this. And we had ones where it's like, "Hey, you're my new favorite client," things like that on the front. So that way, when we go out to people, we can kind of point to the t-shirt and they always giggle and laugh. But it really it does make an impact on other people. And it sounds really crass and things. And I was talking to someone about this, even talking about awards and talking about how, a lot of awards are relatively easy to win. You just pay your submission fee, and some of them, steer clear of these ones. Some of them you just pay your submission fee and you win an award. I don't agree with those ones at all. But with other ones, it really is about, who you are. It really is about how well you know and all this. And this client I was working with said, "So it's not really about merit, is it?" And I went, "Well, it's partially about merit, but no, you're right. It's not for." I mean, you look at the New York Times bestseller list, right? There is, it's an absolute joke. I mean, James Patterson, bless him, he kind of proved them wrong anyway, because he obviously was with a traditional publisher, decided one day he's getting like $1 a book, would sell about 8 million copies of a book a year. And he's like, "That's not enough. Like, I'm getting $1 per book, and all these people are getting a huge amount of money. I don't want to do this anymore." So he decided to create his own publishing company where he can control everything. Yeah. So now, as a new publishing company, he's not whining and dining New York Times bestseller people. He's not out there with the judges saying, "Hey, you should keep an eye on my client," i.e. me. So last year, I think it was last year, might have even been this year actually, because he puts like a book a year out.
More than that. He's
so prolific.
Half a dozen books a year at least.
Yeah, but his one of his books, 8 million copies sold, and didn't even make the the bestseller list on New York Times. And yet the estimation is, and you never know the full numbers because no publisher will ever tell you this. The estimation is the winner of that only sold 500,000 copies. Yeah. And so James Patterson's like, "Well, this just shows you, and look, New York Times is pretty upfront with people and says it's not about book sales, even though it's a bestseller list. It's really, the problem is the name. But they're like, it's all about quality, and it's all about, in other words, it's who's whining and dining them and who's on their radar. From that perspective, it's not really real merit. If you win that New York Times bestseller, right? If you've got that label against your name, you are a thought leader. Everyone will perceive you as that. So it sounds really fickle and kind of things, but it is practical things that you can do to be and our simple thing is, you're not pretending to be anything you're not, right? You're not out there going, "You know what, everyone's going to think of me as a thought leader and I have no idea what I'm doing." No. You know what you're doing. You're good at what you do. You're passionate at what you do, and you want to stand out from all of your competition. You want to stand out from other people. So why not do the things that position you as the authority, as the thought leader, so that you can get in front of the clients that you know you are going to be able to help?
That's so true. And the New York Times bestseller list has also gotten very political. There are a lot of books that they'll say, "Oh, this organization bought 50,000 of them to give to their membership. We're going to back that number out." Those are sales.
Yeah, I know. It's shocking. Yeah, I mean, look, I understand there are ones out there like Wall Street Journal bestseller list, which they are about book sales, but they're weighted book sales. So they're like, hey, we're not going to count Amazon book sales, for example. We'll count them, but as a lower kind of tier of sales.
Yeah,
We
good,
really
good.
want to count the books, ones that were in bookshops. And that I actually don't mind. I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I kind of agree with it. I love bookshops. I love it, even though we work with Amazon very, very closely. And obviously we love being Amazon bestsellers, but the reality is bookshops are dying. And I don't think they should die. I think books are amazing. So, yeah.
Yeah, they really are. They really are. One of my friends who started with her fiction novel the same time I did made the New York Times bestseller list 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And she just has a brilliant email strategy that she uses. It's daring,
Yeah.
but it works. So she's got a very large list of people who do buy. So, but it took her a long time to do it. She has it segmented by where she's figured out where these people buy. It's sort of amazing that the work that she's put into that to do that. So, Vince, where do we find you if people want to talk to you and find out
Well, I make it so difficult. No, I'm joking. It's really easy. All they need to do is go to chasingtheinsights.com. That's the home of my podcast. You'll see links there to all my books. You'll see links to what we do, but you also see links to where to connect with me on social. And I think I've given you a link as well.
yeah.
If you want to be positioned as a thought leader and you want to have a conversation about that, grab some free time with me. We sit down and put together a little strategy for you and work out where you should be focused and what you should be doing. So yeah, chasingtheinsights.com. I'm always like, honestly, I love meeting new people. It's one of my favorite things in the world. That's why I love having a podcast. But if you're a spammer, maybe don't reach out to me because I'm sick. Like way too many of those.
Well, here's what you guys have to realize. And I scold people for this. If you're
Yeah.
not serious or you're going to cancel an appointment, our calendars are our rainmakers.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you're taking a broom on my calendar and you schedule 5, 10, an hour before,
Yeah.
you're more than likely not to ever get to me again.
Exactly. Well, the other one for me, Juliet, you'll appreciate this. I had someone reach out that wanted to be on my show. And I'm always open to talking to people about being on my show. And if they're not a good fit, I'll let them know. But this person said, hey, I'd love to chat with you. And I said, yeah, sure, not a problem. Sent them my Calendly link and said, look, book some time with me to have a conversation and see if you're a good fit. And they replied, actually, can you book on my Calendly? And I went, oh, no, no, no. I said, look, this is connected to all my automations and my team, review everything before it comes in, blah, blah, blah. So you'll need to use mine. He came back and said, I know you'll actually have to use mine. My business won't. And now he's the CEO, by the way. My business won't allow me to use somebody else's link. I'm thinking, this is really, really odd. Like, first of all, that doesn't make sense to me. So then I looked at his Calendly link, and of course, it was name, email address, phone number, physical address, and about 15 questions about the size of your business, the challenges you're having right now. And I'm like, oh, it's a sales pitch. It was somebody like being brave enough to say, hey, I want to be on your show, but actually wanting to sell me something. So I went back to him. I said, look, first of all, I would never give you that information unless I knew you, and I don't know you. And even then, I'd be hesitant to give you that information anyway, because I don't like people cold selling to me. I mean, there's no point. You've got to build a relationship first, get to know me. I only work with people that I know. So I said, you will either do this or we can't have the conversation. And he pushed back one last time, and then he said, oh, finally, okay, I'll get in your calendar. I said, you know what? Don't bother. We're done. You broke the trust. You're gone now. So yeah.
I get carpet cleaners,
Wow. Yeah.
home cleaners, and it's like, what are you doing? You just alienated me for life with
My
that.
favorite one I get at the moment, I seem to be getting quite a few of these, is, hey, Vince, super impressed with your work. Love what you're doing out there, and you're so
Yeah.
passionate about your industry. Now, it never gets specific because it's obviously all just, generic stuff. And then it goes, I was wondering, did you want to take that to the next level? And have you ever thought about becoming an author or a best-selling author? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, I
Yeah,
don't
I
even
think
bother
about it
responding.
a lot.
Yeah, I think all they had to do was go to my website and see I'm 11 times bestseller. There's no way I'm going to be engaging with these people, so I don't even bother replying.
Oh, that's so funny. Well,
Yeah.
Vince, thank you for being on the show. I appreciate you coming in and chatting with me today. And I have this feeling like we could like do a whole summit where we just sit on stage and talk all day.
Oh my
Um,
goodness, I would love that. Yeah, yeah. No, it's been
all
an
right.
absolute honor. Yeah, cool.
All right. We'll talk to you soon.